can understand, Sia. Have you heard of Pater Mutatus?
Abe Pater Mutatus.
This isn't something I made up. This is something in Canon 40k. Have you heard of him?
The Mutatus part sounds familiar. The Pater is just like, so Father Mutation.
Yeah, Father
Yes,
of Mutation is Fabius Bile and the minor chaos god that is being created by his worship. By the worship of him, I should say, not imply that he's worshipping anything.
Yeah, he's turning into something. Like he's creating the shadow of a chaos god. Take Fabius Bile, take the Alpha Legion tactics, and you got Formless Distortion.
Fabius Bile is essentially the egg for a chaos god.
This is all canon, by the way.
The reason his body is falling apart is because it's trying to hatch.
So he's become the Behelit apostle from Berserk.
Yes.
Oh, that ain't good.
That ain't good.
He needs more than one
body.
That
is not good.
Yes,
he needs more than one body right now because... Go ahead.
At the end of the third Fabius Bile book, it's revealed that how he decided to deal with this was splitting the nascent deity between half a dozen bodies that are continuously active at the same time. With the god only... With the god or the original self, whatever you want to call it, awakening occasionally to command them. Though they are mostly allowed to do their own thing. Similar to greater demons, in a way, but not bound to the Immaterium.
Okay, then.
Yeah,
I can send you the Bile books if you want, Sia.
Sweet. Fucked up science.
I will say this much. I really wish GW would hurry up and create PDFs of the discontinued heresy books. Because I am not paying close to $5 for a single book.
You can buy them on the Black Library website, I think.
Yeah.
And not all of them are on there.
What do you want?
Well, like I said, I'm trying to get through some of the Crusade books, and I'm missing a couple of books, but...
No, I'm asking what books do you want? I might have them. Or I might know where to get them. If you search up, like, whatever it is, PDF, odds are you can find it. You'll just have to dig through a lot of shit that wants you to pay for it.
That's what I'm usually having to do, as is.
Just DM me a list of the books you want, and I might be able to find them, or have them.
I'll see what. Well, we'll have to wait until the ban gets over with.
Destroyer coordinates received.
I think it was because I don't know who Revelation or it might have been Valve basically said that we weren't able to DM anybody in the Discord for a little bit.
Just add me as a friend.
That was a couple days ago for a few hours. That's over.
You can add me as a friend, and then you can DM me.
Prophet of Judgment, reporting for duty.
So yeah, Go on.
No, I was just saying that what he was worried about end of the day, the same day, so you don't have to worry about that.
And as I said, adding someone as a friend completely bypasses something like that.
Speaking of bringing up the Rogue Trader game, because I am an awkward piece of shit. So yes, I would like my character to develop a collection of a Futurama head library. Like, you know the head library from Futurama.
Scum.
Good luck.
I'm unsure if this is heretical or not.
It's
Partially,
certainly head-retical.
partially this is for medical reasons. Say that someone has internal failure of many bodily organs and their body's just shutting down. I could save their head and their brain and just grow them a new body in a vet.
I would not say it's heretical. Unless you're, like, saving the heads of heretics for reasons other than, like...
Interrogation?
Yeah. Because if you're just, like, saving the head of a chaos cultist for the heck of it, or because, like, you need chaos knowledge on the fly or whatever, you know...
Or the
that's
location of
probably
where
heretical.
they're worshipping their god, so that we can stop
Yeah.
them.
That is an interrogation.
Yeah, but if I'm keeping the head of a orc doc, like an orc mad doc, and I'm using it to get information on orc biology so I can poison orcs, is this heresy?
I would say no. Like, it may be to get it through other methods, but it wouldn't be heresy, I don't think. It depends on how, like, puritanical and by the books your rogue trader is, what he will permit. But I wouldn't say it's like, I wouldn't call it heretical by the standards of the majority.
I'm not casually talking to this mad doc. I'm keeping it in a jar and zapping it when it
My
refuses
point
to
is,
answer.
you're going to have to ask the GM about the opinions of the people. I would
Fair
say,
enough.
I would say odds are it's probably okay.
Yeah, I'm probably the type of person who's okay with this, because I'm also the same type of person to ask if we can capture enemy vehicles so we can test our weapons on them, to test for
Yeah.
weak points.
So,
Also because we want to do
what
something
I would
fun, like
say-
say test weapons and see how far the chunks go when we overpen it and detonate it.
So, Sia, what I would say is there are, two people or groups of people you need to ask. Like, A, your fellow players, are they going to, like, rat you out? Are they going to get pissed? What are their reactions going to be? Just so, like, they can, like, start developing a thought process for how their character will respond to this.
I think every player has already
to-
gotten that thought process.
Yeah, and, well, then you've already done it, that's good. And
This is
your
probably the
DM,
only
full-
time I'd say I'd side with him with this, if it's just for
Excuse
information
me.
stuff.
Excuse
Spike,
me.
don't talk right
Sorry.
I would thank you for apologizing. What I mean is, you're gonna need to ask the GM, both so he's prepared for when you start trying to make your decapitated head library, and so he can figure out how NPCs will respond to your decapitated head library.
I have already brought it up to him on multiple occasions as well.
Yeah, and he will tell you, and if you ask him, he can tell you whether or not it's heretical. I would say it's probably not too heretical. But I would suggest you constantly reiterate the joke of head reticle until your GM kills your character.
now.
Make as many terrible puns as possible until your GM gets fed up with it. And then either stop or do continue. I would say continue, but, I love causing problems.
Right. So, can you burn the outside of an orc to prevent it from spreading spores? Don't answer this. Without killing it. This is for transport.
I think burning the outside of an orc would temporarily prevent spore transfer. But considering they regenerate so fast, it is a temporary solution, and as soon as you start removing limbs, more spores will come out. You will have to cauterize any injury. Orcs naturally release small amounts of spores, presumably in the breath too. So getting the orc in a mostly airtight container is probably your best bet, considering they're retardedly tanky. This probably will not be a problem for the orc.
What does stasis field work?
Yeah, I
Probably.
mean,
Good.
wherever you're releasing the stasis field, you may have to be careful with, but... Check
True.
open comms.
Another step towards galactic liberation. You may extract when ready.
Dropping a pin. West. 200 meters.
Oh no, what have you done?
So yeah, Miss Moria, if you didn't know, my character is going to be making servitors. That's literally the main focus that I'm going for.
Heard.
We've heard.
Dropships.
I imagine it would include general augmetics as a secondary function, not the main interest, but probably capable. You know, with linking stuff into the brain being the main specialty, presumably.
Yes. But at the same time, some of my considerations for servitors is, what if I made one that is basically a walking mini fridge
Tagging
and put it
Ow.
in rec rooms so soldiers can have a servitor that walks around and distributes beer to them? Or amasec.
That sounds pretty good. Maybe you could make like a couple so it can return to wherever it needs to reacquire sufficient refreshments and be replaced by another in the meantime.
And there's another one for the cantina that has its entire chest cavity replaced with a recaf machine.
I do know we'll be losing Rev soon because it's almost his bedtime.
Hey.
Shut up,
I'm sorry,
right.
but you said
Not wrong.
an org with a recaf machine in its chest.
A servitor
No.
with its
No.
entire chest
Servitor.
cavity being a recaf machine.
Why do I feel like the feeling that this should be standing right next to Crickman?
Think of yourself
Because
as one of the
Or me.
crewmen eating their meal and their cup of recaf has gone empty. Instead of having to get up from all your friends to go and get another cup, you just wave down the servitor and put your mug in.
So I say this because I really want to actually talk to Rev about his AU before he has to leave.
Okay.
Alright, ask me away, Moira, I'm here.
Where'd you get the name Gold?
Reinforcing.
The name what?
The title Golark for
Request approved. Reinforcements have been launched.
I
Yeah.
took the word
Orbital strike.
Primarch and Golem.
Okay.
Put them
So
on it.
they're
Yeah, it was a put 'em
they're
on it.
being like buffed into pseudo
Tagging
Primarch.
map. East. 200 meters.
They're buff. They're common entries. They're demon princes that were remolded to resemble more or less themselves the Primarchs by resembling what they could be if they had descended
5
to
seconds
chaos.
left.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Calling in
TLDR,
Where-
how do I include the demon Primarchs without them being the Primarchs?
Yeah. Where does the peak of masculinity Archaon come from? Because I assume you're not making him an Astartes.
Calling in reinforcements.
That is still a work in progress, my friend. He is not going to be Astartes, but more or less, I'm probably going to make him just a baseline human originally who's, at this point, looks human,
Reinforcing.
is anything but. He more or less, the Kaz will not let him die.
Yeah, no, he's a fucking ripped dude. Pretty based. I can help you workshop that guy. Everybody else looks rad.
Calling in.
Could he be a demon prince that continues to hold the form of a mortal?
He might
In
do
order to
that, but he
fulfill-
also is going to be active outside the eye.
In order to fulfill the role of a champion of Chaos Undivided, he needs to be active enough in real space, which being a demon prince would very effectively counteract.
What if his mortal form's never been slain?
still not.
He wouldn't remain in a similar manner to the. It wouldn't be close enough to possession for him to remain.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think if he were to be a strong enough champion of Undivided,
Calling in extraction.
he wouldn't be able to maintain a human body.
Shuttle inbound.
It would have to be the
I don't
body
know
of the
what-
Astartes, at least. And
Sorry about
Tagging
my
location,
audio dropping
southwest.
there. I have no clue what just happened.
it's fine.
Okay.
TLDR, Archaon has to be a mortal because if he wasn't, he'd have to be in the body of the Astartes. And it's cooler if Undivided has a mortal champion.
Yep, and the key thing is he isn't going to always be the leader of the Desolations, which is the Black
Marking
Crusades of
location,
this verse.
southwest.
But he is definitely going to be the one who actually can get all the fallen of the various factions
Firing orbital
to work
barrage. Clear
together.
the area.
And he organizes. He makes sure that when they do finally retreat back to life, they do torch and burn style.
Yeah, he's the one who
Yeah.
actually keeps them in line
Orbital barrage
with
incoming.
being
Stand
productive.
clear.
Yeah, letting the grudges
Oh.
not boil over until they get the
minus
missions
3
done.
minutes.
I'll come up with some ideas for how to make him work.
Okay.
I mean, I
have no
do.
clue why I'm disconnecting so much. Sorry.
God, it's fine. I like the idea of him still being like kind of a never-born son, chosen hero, whatever.
50 meters.
But
Marking location. Cancel that.
maybe I'll
Southwest.
retool it a bit to be more like a Nervarine-ish prophecy where he has to
T-minus 2
fucking work
minutes,
for
30
it.
seconds.
Like maybe he gets a head start, but he still has to work for a lot of it.
Here's a
Or
idea.
possibly.
So we all know about.
I mean, it definitely could be Bellator, but I'm thinking no like actual demon sex involved, or at least
Thank God.
yeah, more of a you know,
T-minus
your
2 minutes.
sort of bonkers ritual to buff a newborn or unborn child, possibly bathe them in blood. You know, fun chaos stuff.
So
Fun for the whole family.
we
Literally.
know that Chaos can possess items, like the sword that Fulgrim had that caused him to fall.
Yes, you can stick demons in objects.
So
Yeah.
what if Archaon has demons in objects, but the demons are subject to his will?
That is actually going to be the case with his sword.
Yeah.
Who's
That's how his sword works.
Yeah,
Are you gonna turn his
in the marine all
Are
the
you gonna turn
time.
his demon horse into a demon bike?
I've been thinking about it, maybe a little. But I also wanted to bring something up before I go, Moira. I actually came up with a term for Demon Prince. What do you think about Ascended or Arisen? The Arisen.
Requesting advanced weaponry.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the Imperium's more likely to go with Arisen, while, you know, the servants of the gods are more likely to go with Ascended.
Yeah,
Ascended has too much of a actual, like,
Positive.
god worthy of worship connotation that I don't think the Imperium would want. So yeah, I'll start thinking about Archaon. Maybe think about titles for, like, the champions of legions I give a shit about.
ETA T-minus 10 seconds.
Okay. Thank you for doing that, Moira.
I mean, Eidolon as the Phoenix's shadow kind of fucked.
This is Pelican 1.
It just
I have
came
visual
to
on the
me
extraction
that
zone.
this fits far too well. Some of
This is
them are more
Pelican 1,
difficult to
preparing
think
for
of.
touchdown.
I don't think you actually wrote anything down for
Countdown
that.
initiated. Stand by for takeoff.
I think we're just having an authentic two idiots same thought experience.
Oh,
You know,
I'd like
you know,
to play
that's-
the game.
Yeah,
Extraction complete.
that's what they
Pelican
say
1
in
beginning
Germany
ascent.
instead of great minds think alike, they eat the same pot.
Welcome to Cyanide and Happiness.
Joey, you good?
There. I sent you the list so you can
Yeah,
look
I'm
at it in
good.
your own time that I made.
Fucking pissed off at Canada.
Some of
What
them
did
are
I would
Canada
like-
do?
I'd like to
Welcome
play
to
the
the-
game that the settings
Shut up.
for
Ooh.
when it
Rev, do
happens.
you have any titles for them?
work in progress, but Falcron's definitely going to be Lord of the Faceless.
Okay.
Or the Faceless Lord, or some of them are work in progress. Skyrar is going to be fun because
Just
I want to
write
make
them
Skyrar
down.
someone that... Yeah, I'll get to it. Anyway,
Maybe-
I gotta get going because...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Alright, you take
Have
it
a good
easy.
night.
I'd just say number the legions so it takes up less space.
I will do so in the future. And I'll revise it before I resend it. Okay.
No, I just mean like add titles just by number. Good night.
Good night.
Well, I'm interested in partaking of the game that the settings for. Sounds interesting.
There is no game.
He said that there was a game
Oh.
in intent
Tabletop.
behind it.
Mission coordinates locked.
Yeah, a tabletop.
Hell pods
Oh, I guess there is. I don't know.
Engaging orbital
Oh, okay.
thrusters.
Never mind.
I'm just shoehorning myself into this because I desperately need more chaos stuff to do. I ran out of work to do on my own homebrew gods, so I've been shoehorning myself into his AU and stealing his gods and coming up with new Dark Tongue words for his gods. And now that he's revealed the fact they all have champions, I'm stealing those too.
Welcome aboard, Helldiver. The Galactic War needs
Wait a minute.
Shamelessly.
This sounds awfully familiar, like a form of government I've heard.
Taxation is theft. I'm actually putting in work, unlike the state.
No. I'm not talking about like the U.S. government. I'm talking about a form of government, one that honestly a lot of people don't like because they're like, what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours, but technically it's just mine.
No,
The freedom of the
No.
galaxy remains in jeopardy.
I'm
Let us
giving
join
him
the
his
fight.
stuff back better than before.
She's
Commies
being a
just
sneak
take your
seed blood
shit
raven.
and give you like the tiniest
Allied
fraction back,
destroyer coordinates
if that.
received.
That for? Oh, sorry.
I could send you a video on the Holodomor if you want. Debunking arguments against it.
Mission coordinates.
You know, proving that it did happen and was a genocide.
Engaging orbital
Um,
thrusters.
yeah,
I hate communists so much.
I
Oh,
hate that
boy.
people need it proved to them. That shit. There are literal mass grave sites you can go and visit. What the fuck, people?
Well,
Actually, the famine was natural. The Soviets did all they could. Stalin was just super intelligent and just didn't know taking food away from starving
Yes.
people would kill them.
Yes, they did do everything they could, down to kicking down doors and taking food out of children's mouths. They did absolutely do everything they could to take food from Ukraine.
see ya. That was sarcasm. I was joking.
Yeah, and
I
Don't-
think Sia sadly was
counter
trying to do sarcasm
responses
too.
because I also
Like-
hate socialists and I'm tired of this shit. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I thought you were taking me seriously.
I was playing along.
Okay.
I'm
Don't
bad
mind
at
him,
it.
Maria. He sucks at sarcasm.
The socialist groups can get.
Skull.
I've read
Death
too many
cat.
stories where like, oh yeah, it's everybody has to share, but 1% gets almost everything that everybody else is supposed to get. Why? Because it's just that way, and they force that upon everybody else because of fear.
Mm-hmm.
In the attempt of utopia, you only end up in dictatorship.
Well,
Yep.
you know, dark humor, as Stalin once said, dark humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
Yeah.
The devil we shook hands with to kill another one, people.
Again,
Yeah,
if some members of the Allies had their way, Stalin would be in an early grave.
Not really.
No, Winston Churchill
Good
definitely
night.
wanted to kill that son of a bitch.
Yeah,
We
does
were
it
very
mean
close
that
from
it's gonna
getting the worst
happen?
timeline.
Until financial
Good
interest told him
night.
otherwise, and then he turned his back.
Remember the leaked Operation Unthinkable?
Unthinkable because it's insane and
Squad
not
lost.
possible
Going for
yet.
replacement. Request approved.
The only
Reinforcements have been
chances
launched.
the Allies had to defeat Russia after World War II was to follow Patton, which was we go now, right now, when they're bloodied, when they're weakened, when they're still starved for some supplies, when they are lacking on natural resources. Now is when we strike. Otherwise,
and also
we
the fact
will
that
never
their stuff
beat
is
that
absolute
enemy.
garbage. Don't forget to include that all their equipment is absolute trash.
Yeah, the Mosins were all right.
Okay, it wasn't trash. It was good enough to do the job. Was it going to do the job well? Was it going to do it
apart?
Was it going to do the job well? Was it going to do it in a quality fashion? Was it going to be great? No, but it still did the job.
Yes, there is one thing I like to point out. Yes, it's a horrible tank, but well, did it do its job? It did its job. Yes. As a good example of how it went well somehow, well, despite being a flaw, a good example is you need to push the pedals to keep the tank from not moving. And
Need I point out the majority of the time it was fighting against a undermanned, under-equipped, supplied force that is struggling to keep itself afloat.
And the Germans still gave them a bloody nose.
Soviet divisions were smaller than Allied and German divisions. That's another thing.
German divisions were smaller than the Russians.
Sure, a single Soviet division was smaller, but they had more of them.
Yes, by making smaller divisions, you would have more of them.
Well, no, they were just playing into their manpower.
Spanish or something, or no, not the Spanish. Was it the Romanians? Or the Finnish? I don't know.
No, the Soviets. I'm thinking of the Soviets.
Basically pushed Russia out because one darn man with a darn rifle managed
Think about it.
To put this into context, because it's not what you're thinking. It's not what you're thinking. To put this into context, sure, the Soviets would make smaller divisions, but where you would have one United States division, you'd have 3 Soviet divisions.
Yes, and if one division, you could more easily
Where
destroy one
and the
division.
logistics of maintaining 3 divisions instead of just having it all as one is a lot harder. So it's a detriment. It's a stupid thing. It's just manpower play.
That also speaks bad about the Soviets that they couldn't supply bigger divisions. What are we fighting over? I'm sorry, I'm just fucking pissed off at this game.
Well, take your anger
There's no fight.
at Canada and start using it against.
Fuck, the Pacific states are too powerful now.
The Soviets were, in fact, the inferior military force through the entirety of the World War. The only issue is, while being inferior, they had the most equipment, the most industrial power, and the most manpower to levy.
Did
hear Nazis say that.
Hold on.
The Nazi propaganda say that.
Did you forget how much their industry was funded and maintained by American and British support? If not for the Americans,
1942 and 43.
If not for the Americans and British, who were still shipping them equipment and supplies to keep their industry running, they would have collapsed in the Operation Barbarossa.
No, Operation Barbarossa was doomed to fail, even if the Russians were not getting any Leg-Lease support.
Yeah.
By the time Operation Barbarossa was occurring, the Germans had already fucked their logistics to the degree that they could never win.
Look at the Lend-Lease numbers.
Lend
and
lease
then-
The Germans would never win
one person at a
Operation
time.
Barbarossa. Their logistical systems could never support it. Doesn't matter what situation you put the world in, Operation Barbarossa always fails.
Yes, but either way, the Russians didn't have it exactly perfect either due to sabotaging their own supply line, so the Germans wouldn't just walk in. So they'd have a equally bad time going in the opposite direction and towards them.
You mean the Russian strategy
hold on,
do a fighting
in total,
retreat?
Yes.
The U.S.
They scorched earth a lot of their equipment, of their infrastructure.
A scorched earth
what
fighting
little
retreat
infrastructure
is
there
a
was.
viable tactic.
In
Yes.
total, the U.S. deliveries, just the U.S. deliveries to the USSR through Lend-Lease amounted to $11 billion in materials, equivalent to $143 billion in 2022, over 400,000 Jeeps and trucks, 12,000 armored vehicles, including 7,000 tanks, about 1,386, of which were M3 Lees, 4,102 were M4 Shermans, 11,400 aircraft, of which 4,719 were P-38s, and Aero Cobras, 3,414 were Douglas A-20 AVACs or Havocs. 2,397 were Bell P-63 King Cobras, and 1.75 million tons of food.
Okay, so the tanks and planes won't really they're not important.
Roughly 17.5 million tons of military equipment, vehicles, and industrial supplies and food.
When did it come in?
There are 2 to 3 sets of resources that are missing from this chart. Coal, oil, and raw steel.
From 1941, 1942, and 1940, all the way to 1945.
But yes, the United States bankrolled the Allies when it joined. We were the industrial powerhouse of the Allied powers. This is a fact.
I will say this, the Lend-Lease did not save the Soviets, but it carried the Soviets to Berlin.
It allowed the Soviets to have a stopgap measure until they could get their Ural Mountain factories up and going.
I will agree to disagree.
I think the Soviets, they managed to hold on at depending on where you think it is, at Stalingrad. If you say that's the turning point where the Germans could not advance anymore.
Are you ready to hit play, by the way?
Yeah, I'm ready, and there's nothing I can do.
Well, then why'd you pause it?
I never paused
The farthest,
I thought you paused
the farthest the Germans could make it was the Volga River.
No, they made it right outside Moscow.
No, yeah, their fastest tank brigade,
less than 6
who
miles.
were all overstretched, outside of logistical lines, and without any infantry support. Those tanks didn't last very long. When it comes to the scope of the entirety of the war, the Germans outside of Moscow is a side note.
Sure.
Because they really didn't do much outside of Moscow, because they were over-ambitious, going ahead of what they could logistically support. with both manpower and
We're
supplies.
We're just gonna ignore the fact that if they hadn't gone for Stalingrad, they could have pushed them all easily, and taken Moscow easily if they hadn't done the dumb shit at Stalingrad.
If they took Moscow, big whoop-de-doo, that's not going to win them the war.
No, it's not. In
No,
fact,
but it's
I'm
going
rather
to-
sure
it's
that
going to-
Stalin would burn down Moscow with the Germans inside of it.
You're ignoring the infrastructure.
He would repeat. It'll be a repeat of the war with Napoleon, is what he's saying.
Hold on. You're ignoring the infrastructural status of Russia at the time, which all railroads led to Moscow. What happens if you cut off all the railroads?
It would be the same as the Germans taking Rome, but the issue is that they can't take all of Russia.
They don't need to take all of Russia. They just need to be able to destabilize and cut off their logistical network, and then they can tear apart the Russian army piecemeal.
Yeah, the only thing the Germans technically needed was a little bit more help. Like I say, if Japan moved in and just destroyed one part of the Siberian line so that they couldn't just ship all those a good chunk of the soldiers from the east over back to the west.
Japan wasn't at war with Russia until much, much later.
Yes, until it was way too late when much of the Siberian troops were already moved.
Hold on a second. Did they ever sign a treaty?
The Axis powers were a defensive alliance. If you declared war on somebody, none of the other powers had an obligation to come to your aid, but they could if they wanted to.
No. Did Japan ever sign a peace treaty with Russia?
No,
they did have a peace treaty because of the 1984 Japanese versus Russians. They had a war prior to World War I. About Port Arthur.
Yeah, I know
it's the funny story about the Baltic Fleet firing upon some fishermen because they think they're Japanese.
Yes, I remember it's the worst navy in the world video by Simple History.
By a bunch of people, yes.
Yes, they basically went over there saying, hey, are you Japanese? No? We're going to ambush them. Then they got themselves ambushed.
Yeah, it's that war. It happened right before the Great War.
Yeah, but
damn
it. But technically, wasn't Japan at war with Russia during the Great War?
What? During the Great War, Japan and Russia were allies, as Japan was taking island colonies from the German Empire.
Wrong war. I meant
now this is the Great
They
War
were
is
not
World
at
War
war
I.
during World War II, if that's what you're asking.
Only at the very end.
Yes,
They
at the
had a
very end of
non-aggression
World War
pact.
II did Russia declare war on Japan.
It was only until after Germany had been defeated.
But did they ever actually sign a treaty with?
They never
Russia?
signed a peace.
No, but they did sign a peace with the United States.
So technically, Japan and Russia are technically still at war with each other.
Technically.
The Soviet Union is defunct, so no.
Well, it's defunct.
Yeah, well, Putin would argue otherwise.
He would,
until it's in his favor.
He isn't going to live forever. No one does.
Yeah.
I hope he gets cancer.
I hope he comes down with dementia.
Going for Moscow is the most serious.
And as far as human history is concerned, the USSR is defunct. It's a dead empire.
Not judging by what a lot of people in Russia think. They think it's ready to come back. Because
Good for them.
Because they still have fun.
Not my problem.
And the city of Babylonia believed it would come back after the Bronze Age collapse. Didn't do squat.
It doesn't exist anymore. The city exists, just not the state as an independent nation.
Liberty's enemies.
It became a revolving capital for like a dozen different empires.
Yep.
The Helldivers battled for freedom.
I just wish
Let
Belarus
us
would
decide what
open its eyes and realize, wait a minute, I don't have to do what they say. I'm my own country. Suddenly just close the border.
Here's your issue. White Ruthenia, which is